Test, test. Ooh. So that you can put there, and then this will go on your left ear, I believe. Yeah. Oh, two. Yes. So we like to move around, unfortunately. Take that movement
Like that.
between your the edge of your chin.
Sure.
That should be good to
Yeah?
go.
All right.
Attached here.
Where's my live button? Let's see.
And that turns off. You can turn off and on with this switch here.
Okay. Should. Correct. All right. All right, everyone who wants to listen to the financial presentation, I invite you in now. So thanks. Birds? All right. Yes. All right, there's still room in here. We're going to get started in just a minute. So. All right. I want to call this the group. Good? All right. All right. All right. All right, welcome. I'm Jeff Engelking. I'm the treasurer at Immanuel here. And we're here to talk about the financial recap for 25 and preview the budget for 2026. So welcome to everybody that's here in this space and who's here online on the device of their choice. So first, just want to give a lot of thank yous. I get the pleasure to summarize and report on all the financials for the organization, but really there's so many people, I don't want to start naming names, but everybody from those of you who pledge, to those who count the pledges, to processing the gifts, to the accounting, to the financial team that helps review everything, and our wonderful staff that helps really keep everything together. Mm-hmm. All right. So here we have here, I've got the balance sheet up here. So the way I like to think about the balance sheet, the assets section on the top gives us our financial resources that we have here. In our case, it's cash and investments, you'll see. And then the bottom half of the financial statement is the equity and liabilities. Really, I think of that at our church here, that's our commitments to our ministry. And so this is the best financial statement that gives us the financial overview for all of the financial operations. And then I've got a few more reports that really dig into some more detail to what we call the general fund. So just, I'll just go off. I've got very good news to share. And I'll get into that here. So when we look at the balance sheet every month here, we look at the cash, of course, and then the uncommitted funds. That's where I'll focus our attention here. So these are the funds that can be assigned by the council, which includes the general fund and then any other uncommitted gifts that's been received by the church. In 2025, as you'll see, at the end of 2024, we had, $275,000 of available funds. A lot of that came from, COVID era contributions from the federal government to help us keep it, and then just bequests and things like that. So during 2025, it was one of the objectives of the council how are we going to really put that money to use? And we went through an exercise as a council and came up with this plan here that you'll see in 2025. We have a lot of needs, especially for the roof, or roofs, I should say. We've got several here that need work. And so we decided to use some of that money, $100,000, to allocate it to the property fund for roofing, and then even potential exploration of solar panels once the roof is in place, since that's where the solar panels are going to go. But that's in an exploration stage. And then we also allocated $30,000 in two equal increments of that were paid out through the general fund to our ministry partners. Now, these are external partners, one for Lutheran Social Services and the other one for Interfaith Action. So that's a good way for us to really put the money to good use for the ministries that we believe in here. So those are, as you'll see, some of the different shiftings of the funds that we had during 2025. A lot of that had to do with just putting that money to work. So I think then on the ministry funds, which starts about halfway on the bottom of the page there, those are the different funds that that were either dedicated specifically by the members of the church or by the council. through, if there was an unrestricted gift, the council made an allocation and said, we're going to put the money to work for this particular ministry team. So you'll see, I think the biggest difference that you'll see here is in the property funds, which includes a couple different funds, but that's the summary. We created kind of an improvement maintenance fund in property that many of you started giving to. That was part of the increase. And then also the $100,000 that came from the council allocation. So that's what we have there. I think here's a geeky part of this, but it sticks out on the financial statement too, for fixed assets. So as a church, you'll see the fixed asset line on the top. We had $3.9 million in fixed assets, and that number was put on long before my time, probably during the renovation of the church, long time ago, and it just never changed. As a church, we're on cash basis accounting. So what that pretty much means is that what you see on the balance sheet and some of the other statements that we're going to see are just the ins and outflows of cash. Fixed assets for the church is more of an accrual basis of accounting. And as you'll see that for what do we need the fixed asset information for? We don't have to report to the banks. We don't have to report to the government or anything else. We're reporting it for us. And then the best case for having some kind of accounting for fixed assets is for insurance purposes. And as you'll see there, our insurance underwriters, they help us evaluate the value of the building and the contents to make sure that we're properly insured. And that number gets updated annually. It's 14.9 or almost $15 million, which was very different from what we had on the books. So what we decided, working with the finance team and the council, saying let's not put a number on the balance sheet that really it doesn't have much meaning for us as a church and it doesn't get maintained. So we took it off, and we're just going to continue as a cash basis accounting here. So I told you that was the geeky part, but it does stick out on the financial statement. I'll pause there if there's any questions on the balance sheet. Yes?
Is there a reason why we keep the fixed asset in on the balance sheet?
Yep. So I'll just repeat the question since they're not mic'd for the people that are listening outside. The question was, is there a reason we have to have the balance sheet or the fixed assets on the balance sheet? Was that? So I think for larger organizations where you've got employees and staff, fixed assets are a traditional part of corporate balance sheets where you're reducing those for tax purposes and things like that too. We're tax exempt, so that's another reason we don't have to have it on here. But for other organizations, yeah, fixed assets are typically a part of it, but they're largely an accounting for taxes. And we had another question? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's a lot of numbers.
It is.
So I might be repeating too. But so in the December 2024 column versus the 2025 for the O'Neill bequest, the Paulson bequest, and the Wilson bequest.
Yep.
Where there isn't anything, is there still money in those bequests? But just, is there still money in those bequests?
Okay, so the question was, under the uncommitted funds, right below the general fund, we have a couple bequests that had balances last year, and we're wondering, is that money still around, and where did it go? So, yeah. So that's part of the council allocations I talked about in 25. So we had these unrestricted bequests, and we wanted to put the money to work. So instead of just sitting there like last year, the council decided we're going to put in $100,000 toward property. So that's partly where it went. And then the other 15,000 or 30,000 in total went to payments to our ministry partners. And then those went out of the general fund, and I'll show more detail there. Any other questions on the balance sheet? Oh, we got one in the back.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time identifying what are the total operating expenses for the church in the past calendar year.
Yes. So the question was, where are the operating expenses for the church here? I'm glad you asked. That's a good segue into the next report. But what I will say is, so the general fund, while the balance sheet's a great overview of the financial statement, there's so many different numbers in the general fund, lots of different revenues and expenses, that it's too much just to talk about the change in the general fund here. So I've got more reports on the next page that goes into that kind of detail. So I think we're ready to go to next page. Okay, this might be a little bigger. So this is the extraction of the general fund. And this is really where we spend most of our time in council and the finance team. And so since the general fund is really, as you'll see, the sustainable revenues and expenses that support the day-to-day operations of the church. On the previous page, we had $147,000 of money that was in the general fund at the end of the year. So this report here shows our accounting of the general fund for full year 2025. So we create a budget, since there's so many numbers in there, we create a budget for each line of the general fund to just estimate how we're going to create the year. So as you'll see in the budget column, we projected a small loss of $2,754. And then on the actual, that's how we ended up the year. So the good news here, I think, line number 1, I have it highlighted in green and have a comment there. The offering is the most important line of the general fund. That's all of us contributing to the church for the day-to-day operations. This is what funds the utilities, the staff, all of the day-to-day expenses of the church. You can see we don't get money from the government. We don't get much money from external partners. We get a little bit from rental income for the church when it makes sense, but we have to rely on the offering. It's our church. It's our finances. And as you'll see, we ended up just about right on budget for offering, which is great news. So then I added the flea market here. It's a great ministry, and they had a wonderful year. So we've, based off of history, we just don't know what the weather's gonna be like or anything else of who's gonna come into the flea market. So $17,000 has been a good historical number, but we exceeded that this year by $5,749 on line 3. And that allowed, so the social action team on line 9 in the expenses to pay more money out on benevolence. So the flea market activity is one of our ministries where we help support the local ministry partners. So when we make more on the flea market, we get to spend more on benevolence, if you will. So then I'll go down to line 15 here. You'll see the net income was really right on where we budgeted, which is, I don't know, the budget is an educated guess of how it's going to come on, and when it comes that close, it is just a testament of how people manage their budgets and how we all committed on and came through on our pledges. And honestly, there's a little bit of luck too, because not every number was right on, but in all my years of budgeting and finance, to be that close is pretty remarkable. So let's see. So then the line 15 shows us our differences from a budgeted standpoint. So as I talked about earlier, the council had some we made some decisions about past surpluses in the operating fund. And those, so the spending on line 16, these were decisions that were made after the budgeting process. It was part of our objectives of the year to decide what to do with that money, but it was outside of the budget. So there's $34,000 that was spent there. So I already talked about the $30,000 that was part of the ministry partners. And then we also did $4,462 in the balcony sound and system improvements. So all of those expenditures get approved by the council and they come out of past surpluses. So line 17, the deficit of $37,000 is really nothing to be alarmed of because we had the money from past years. So that's 2025. How about some questions about the general fund? We've got one right there, yep.
What's been the trend with the offering income over the last like 5-10 years? Is this pretty constant? Is it going downward?
It's going up. I got another slide for that when we talk about the two. Yeah, so the question was, what's the trend in the offering income been? And the short answer is it's going up, but I'll give more detail in a minute. Anything? Yeah, Ron.
The flea market's on the budget, but the Ludicrous dinner and the bake sale isn't. Is that just historical reasons why some are on the books and some aren't?
Yeah, so the question is, Lutefisk dinner and the bake sale, is that included in this financial statement? And the answer is it is not. And why was the other part of that question. For historical purposes, that is the best answer there. I think there's, in my view, it really could be. And I think like the men's club has their own checking accounts and their own activities, and that might be just an opinion of mine, just kind of a legacy before church accounting systems were really able to segregate funds like we can now. And it's, and I think they're using more of a touch point and other systems too. So maybe there'll be a point where we might just bring that all together. But yeah, they have their own systems for accounting and things like that, and it's excluded from this. More 2025 questions? All right. Here's the, yeah, go ahead, Cindy. Do you have your mic?
I've got a mic, so I'll just use it. Can you guys turn me on? Where I need to be on? Okay, good. I am in awe of this.
The green light?
He's asking the people in the screen room.
Okay.
Whatever.
I hear you fine.
Smile and nod most of the time. I'm in awe of this 242 number. The people that put the budget together, there are several of them.
Yeah.
I'm in awe of them every year, but this is maybe the closest they've ever been to saying, yes, this is what we think we're going to get in, and this is what we think is going to be spent. And look what they did. So thank you for the work, and thank you for the insights and whatever it is you use, the Holy Spirit, I think, to help us know how to plan really well.
Yeah. Thanks. Right. Okay. Well, thank you. Any other questions on 2025? Great year. Okay. Okay. So going back to the offering income question here. So line one, offering. It's you can see that the trend is going up from 24 and 25 to, this is the best news here. So there's been a lot of messaging over the last year about we as an organization wanted to increase the benefits to our paid staff. And, we hadn't provided retirement and health for most of the non-clerical team. And that was probably a result of a lot of it used to be more of a part-time workforce, and but now we've got full-time people. It's changed. Times have changed, expectations have changed. So we've decided to, we don't, it's not in the budget, but we did have a surplus, and if it doesn't come through this year, we're just going to pray and hope it does work, because it's the right thing to do. I thought the messaging was really good about the needs, and the stewardship messaging was excellent, right on. And the organization, everyone here responded to that. So this is $57,000 increase in stewardship or for offering that's going to be used in part 2 on line 7. Pay the increased costs, not just for the additional retirement and health benefits to the team, but also to take care of some of the increasing costs that are happening everywhere else too, that we all feel, and we see them at the church, especially on the property line 9, where we've got increased contracting services, all of the contractors we use to help maintain the building. Also, insurance just keeps going up and up and up. So that's it's in there in the budget to handle those increases there, and then you'll see the other ministry teams. For the media ministries is the other thing I'll point out. There's some new equipment and a communications team that we're excited about to fund, so offering is going to cover that as well. And we have a nice buffer on line 16 for the budget. You'll see there's $11,700 planned surplus, because we're not always going to be as lucky as we were to land right on, but having a little wiggle room in the budget is great. So this is an excellent budget. So I'll just stop and say thank you, and what other questions we have about the 2026 budget or some of the past. We got a couple years of comparative data to look at as well. Yes, Larry.
Do you have any feeling of how we compare with other churches in this area?
So the question was, how does this compare with other churches in the area? I'll speak. We talked a little bit about this during the year about specifically providing benefits to staff, and I think we were behind the curve there. So that was part of the rationale and really the decision to say we're just going to go for it, and if we don't raise enough this year, we'll get most of the way there or part of the way there, and just have more communications to say this is the right thing to do. Does that address most of the question? But as far as their other churches offering, I don't have a whole lot of basis there. Anybody else? Yeah.
I see the social action line bumped back down again. Is that because we don't know how much will come from the flea market?
That's exactly. So the question is, social action went down from 25 to 26. And yes, that's because we went back to kind of a historical flea market, but if it continues, we might just bump it back up, but we'd rather plan for what usually happens and then be fortunate if it comes in better. Yeah, Rhonda.
Can you remind me what's in the other income?
Okay, the other income there, that is, we have some investment income. So yeah, the question was on line 5 on the financial statement, we've got other income. So that has a couple of different things. So one is investment income. Then the other parts of it are just a lot of money that we collect and send out. Like, it might be for Wednesday night supper, and then there's other expenses that go out below, or for flowers, or, for other types of ins and outs, I would call it. But otherwise, I think the main ones are on lines 1 through 4. More questions? Yes, in the back.
That kind of segues into a question
Okay.
which is, do you have a slide related to those investments, or like that fixed asset line you had in the previous balance sheet?
I don't have any. So the question is, do I have more slides for the other income, or the fixed assets, right? I don't. This is my last slide. But we can provide, so this is a summarized view of the financial statements for a presentation, but anybody that wants the full financial statements with all of the balance sheet accounts and all of the different lines within these ministry funds, there's more detail for anybody that wants to go through it. And just come see me or Deanna if you want more detail. Yeah.
The other, another one that comes to mind, Rhonda, for the other is like school tools. So that's income, other, and then it goes right up.
So what, Deanna, what was the?
School tools is another.
School tools, okay.
For the other.
Yep.
And, things like, to your point, things like that come in and go out.
Yep. Okay. More? Yes.
Like others have mentioned, I think everyone putting this together and looking at the big picture, looks positive right now. Are there things that you guys maybe, that isn't shared on here, like maybe this might be something we, maybe like concern, this is something that in the back of our minds, we're gonna say maybe this is gonna come up and we're gonna prepare for it or anything?
Okay. So the question is, we have great news here. I guess that's the comment. But the question is, well, what else would we be concerned about that we're not talking about here? I think. Yeah. So I guess. Oh, but the roof? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I was thinking specifically about the general fund. I think one thing that we talked about, not for the employee expenses. Not all the staff are enrolling into the health fund. And if, you know, the composition of the staff changes where more people would need to health insurance through the church, that would increase costs. That's a tomorrow issue, but we're on the path right now and committed to, you know, providing for our workers. I think, yeah, the other concern is really probably around the maintenance of the building, and I think that was reflected in the council actions that were I talked about earlier. We've got several different roofs, and they all need different levels of repair over the next several years. $100,000 will put a dent in it, but it's not even half of the total costs. So we're spending more time this year, and somebody in property could say more about it, but to really find out, okay, how long will it last? What has to come first? And really, how fast can we go on the roof? But we've got a good start of, you know, being able to work our way toward that. Cindy, would you say what else would you add to that? Okay. Well, that's good. Other questions? Yeah.
Do you have any ideas of how many people watch on live stream, and of those, how many contribute to the offering income?
The question was, how many are on the live stream, and how many contributed? I don't have a sense of that. If Brian's around, maybe. Yeah.
I don't have a number for you myself.
Is it dozens or is it?
We don't have a number, but we do not know who they are who come online.
Yeah.
There's no way for us to associate a name with the person online. So there's no way to answer that question.
But otherwise, the offering, I'll just go into a little detail. So most people pledge, and we know who they are because they tell us or they pay. But then, you know, part of there's then some people that just pay when they can or drop it into the plate, and we go through some math to figure out, well, for those who don't pledge, what's been our historical trend to figure out what our offering is going to be for the year. More questions?
Jeff, I'd like to make one clarification.
Sure.
When it comes to collecting viewing data, it's very difficult to really identify individuals. Impossible, really. So that kind of correlation is hard to make at this point.
Yeah, that's good. All right, I think Cindy's got some comments too, so. Well, thank you.
Not on finance.
Okay, all right. Here we go.
This is the bane of my existence, just to let you know. Sunday morning trying to get this thing on my ear. You know what, we're just not even gonna deal with that. And they can yell at me later. So we have spent a year talking about anticipating becoming a reconciling in Christ congregation. And just a quick recap of what we have to do to become a reconciling in Christ congregation. There are 4 things that we have to do. One of them, help me out, team, because I'm not going to, off the top of my head, I'm not going to remember what they are. We have to be willing as a congregation to host same-gender weddings. That's one of them. That ship has sailed. We made that decision 10 years ago. As a congregation, the council decided on that. We have to make a gift to Reconciling Works, who establishes this program. It is in the social action budget for this coming year.
Be willing to hire?
We have to be willing to hire someone in the LGBTQ community. Let me tell you how much everybody loved Josh last year. We're just going to say that. So that has not been, we're not seeing that as an issue. And the last thing we have to do is write a welcome statement. So this past, a month or so ago, a group got together, our RIC team got together and wrote a statement. And our goals for the statement were that it be simple and brief, because we've seen statements that go on for a page, and people don't read them. You know, you read the first sentence or 2 of them, and it's like, okay, I just got lost in there somewhere. So we wanted it to be simple and brief. We wanted it to speak to who we are with the vision and language of this congregation. And we came up with the top statement, which we sent out to you and asked for input. Over the course of the 2 weeks we received input from 22 people, and we met and tried to include that input, because this welcome statement is all of ours, it's not just mine. And so draft 2 includes the suggestion. This is the first time you all are seeing it, so I'm going to read it to you, because I know everybody's kind of going like, can't quite see it. There's a lot of words on this screen. As Christians, we share God's message of hope and love with all communities. We welcome and celebrate all of God's children, including those of all races and ethnicities, all sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions, and all ages and abilities. This list is not meant to be exhaustive, but expanding as God continues to call us to widen our welcome. As we work and journey together, we invite and honor the many diverse gifts of all who are seeking God's love and grace. Now let me explain to you why we made the changes we made from the first half. Originally we had said, as followers of Christ, our vision is to share God's message of hope. That is literally our vision statement for the congregation. Our vision is to share God's message of hope with all communities. I bet you didn't know we had a vision statement, did you? Yeah, I didn't think so. And neither does anybody else out in the community. And so we thought, well, maybe we should just make the sentence clear instead of trying to say word for word what our vision statement is. So that was part of that change. We also added the word love, of hope and love, from one of the comments that somebody sent us, that they would like to see us to say hope and love. The second sentence was changed just in clarity. Somebody said, you got too many ands in this sentence. Can we just make it clear this way? And we thought, hey, that's pretty good. So we did that. That's what happened to the second one. The third one came from a comment, actually two, that questioned, what does welcome mean? I mean, can we say, we welcome all? Because all includes a lot. And how do we make this a process that we're a part of and not just say, oh, we are this? And so we added this list about it's not meant to be exhaustive, but expanding as we work to widen our welcome, because we will continue to be in process and learning and trying to figure out better how to live as followers of Christ. And then the last sentence, I believe, is very similar. We just changed the word welcome to invite because we had too many welcomes in that paragraph. We are still receiving thoughts. I mean, if you have thoughts you would like to speak now, great. Otherwise, our form that we have that you can get to through the app is going to be open until tomorrow. You can throw your things into us if you have more comments. I'm going to be quiet now and see if anybody has questions or comments. Yeah, Gay.
I think,
Here, I'm just going to give you my little mic.
Some of the comments we received, we really couldn't change so much of this because some of this welcome statement is prescribed by the RIC process. So there's wording in that is required to be part of an RIC congregation.
It's mainly that second sentence has some prescribed wording in it. The other thing, and somebody did make a comment about this, is that Reconciling Works asked that congregations work toward racial justice, and a lot of people will put that in their welcome statement. It is one of our congregational stated goals, and so they said that's fine if it's one of your goals as opposed to being explicit in the statement. We sent that version by them, and they said, "Yep, you're good." But we will we'll send them the other one as well. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Dick Thunberg. Got my name taken. Back in 2000, I have 2 daughters. They're both 65 now next week.
I'm going to hold this and let you hold this. And if you put it a little bit closer to your mouth, people will hear you.
I think I can shout loud. I have 2 daughters, Turner and Tracy. We're now going to be 65 years old in the 7th of April. But they had a lot of girlfriends in high school and never really had a boyfriend. And I didn't think that was unusual. They were the kind of the cream of the graduating class, and so they did very well in high school. And now they both went to separate colleges, and they stumbled around. Where am I? I mean, what's my diversity? Who am I? And both of them had boyfriends in college, and one married that boyfriend. That was down at Gustavus, and he had a business downtown St. Peter, and taught. He prepared string instruments, and Tracy was down there with her lute and her guitar, and and she loved that guy, and they fell in love. They got married, and it went on for 3 years. I said, "Where's the grandchildren?" Well, we're in counseling, and 3 years later she divorced him, and she found another woman to enjoy the life thereafter. I says, she's a queer. I says, but then I have to accept her. And Karen, my wife, was so adamant that I accept this here situation. And part of my problem right now today is I lost my dog on Thursday. Anyway, I had to put my dog to sleep after Karen bought him 14 years ago. And Karen's been gone for 4 years. But that's immaterial about what I'm talking about, though, because the thing about it, so then Tracy found another lady to live with, and just the sweetest lady, and the two of them came together. And then when she was, she worked for Health East, and they said you have to be married to have your friend or partner on the health insurance. So they scrambled before 2018 to have a marriage down here at the Czech Hall at West 7th, and they had 180 people there. but 120 were gay lesbian, and they had a phenomenal potluck supper. I bought the booze and I bought the wine and had a wonderful time. and so it was and they live over off of Inglewood there, and they're happier in the clam, they do together, they travel together. And you see the relationship between the gay community of how they sponsor each other one. Now the other daughter met a Filipino lady, immigrated from Philippines, and she had several women friends, never talked about marriage, but they always came to our house for Christmas time. And they come in from Texas. She was teaching down or still is teaching down at North Texas University. And she's a flute professor. And she's the head of the department. But anyway, she found a woman found her from the Philippines, immigrated from Philippines. She says, her name was Ruth Rubio. And Ruth says, I want you for a partner. And Terry says, I don't know. And then Terry had a bunch of friends, and Ruth fought these friends off so they could get married together. And so he called me up from San Francisco, Crocus Hill area. And so they arranged to have a wedding there in Crocus Hill in San Francisco. And the mayor of San Francisco that day shut down gay lesbian marriages. So they went to Portland, Oregon, and got a license in Portland, and flew back the same day, got married in the afternoon. And we had about 20 people there for them. We had just a wonderful relationship with them. I could never accept those. I had these guys talk about queer jokes all the time. And it's just really hard to fathom it. They're both so happy. And Terry and Ruth traveled the world. They both work for the college, and they got the summers off, and their online their program is travel crazy. If they had 3 days off, they're in Spain, they're in Portugal, they go all over the world because they've got access and they got the financial, and then now they're in some kind of a travel credit deal where they get 100,000, 200,000 miles and for just signing up. And but I see these things, how we should accept these people because they are different. They are different. Their mentality is different, and their kindness is different. They're so loving. They understand love. In fact, Tracy tried to talk to me about love and send me books about love. I said, you don't find love in books, you find it in your heart. Jesus. You put Jesus in your heart and you have love. And so that was one thing I wanted to talk about. But another thing I want to talk about is, can I have one more minute?
You can have one more minute.
One is donations. And so Karen and I put $50,000 away to have something for the church at our desire to have done. And so this year, the landscaping came up. And so I had an IRA, and I could write a check for $20,000 down for Harvey because he was scrambling how to pay for the front part there. And so then I went to my stock market, Fidelity, and my advisor, I said, I need another $28,000 to get to the $50,000 mark, and that we promised. And so then he arranged, but then we sent it through the bank or the church here. We still give the stock to the church, and they went to John Morgan, which charged us about 15% commission. So it's almost $500 on the $28,000 bond. So now Joe and Jeff are working together right now through Fidelity, and Jeff says, I'll charge nothing. He says, when anybody wants to give money, and I'm 80 years old almost next month, but I have a stock market, and I don't like to pay 15% commission to give it to the church. But he says, I'll take care of it, and if you have stock, and I don't think maybe 10 to 20% of our congregation has got stock market to give away for that. But I have some stock that would appreciate 300%, 400%, and so if it's 300%, I give them 10% of that, it's to give you $100,000, it only cost me $30,000. So that's what's going on. But we have that available for donations for people that have the stock market. If you don't have to join in now, but sometime down the road, you say, whatever I have in the bank is not enough to meet the, and Penny he always had, so this is what you're gonna pay next year. And she always added on 5 or 10%, and not knowing my background, but I had a building I had for sale for contract for deed for 25 years and it expired. Now I paid the last payment in July, so now I'm on Social Security, quote, yeah. That's the way the thing goes on, but because I worked hard all my life and saved it, I I do have I'm great. Well, I got two things that I want to remember. We do have this here in our life, and we had this election. Obama promised to have freedom of having who partner you want. And so Karen got at least over $2,000 for signs for our front yard to vote yes for the amendment, so it passed. Well, thank you very much.
Stephanie, you're very patient. Thank you.
That's okay. Yeah, just first I'd like to say thank you to everybody for putting this together. This is something that I know back in my time as president, we had talked about reconciling in Christ and ended up doing the steps that you had talked about, but not actually going through and doing the reconciling in Christ. So I see more how important it is to have something that everybody can recognize what it is that we are. So thank you all for revisiting that and putting that together. Just so it's wonderful, totally support this. I am curious about there was some sort of fee that we need to pay. Could you give me an approximate, and is that an annual or one time?
The request is that, you were talking here, right? Everybody heard this. The request is that we make an annual gift. There's not a fee. They don't tell us how much. Jeff, do you know how much Social Action put in the budget for this next year?
I don't.
Okay. I can get that information to you, but it will be an annual thing. So,
no, I at first was wondering why we would need to be reconciled in Christ officially, because I believe this congregation has lived this way for a long time. But Josh when he was here, helped me with that. He said there are people who would be afraid to come here if we didn't, officially recognize ourselves as that.
thank you. Other thoughts and questions? Larry?
I just have to say, it must be about 30 years ago, and we had an adult forum. We had adult forum between services, and the subject came up, and one woman said, "Why do we need to discuss this? What is the problem?" 30 years ago, at least.
I think maybe we've come a little ways since then, but thank you for bringing that up. Other thoughts? Other thoughts? Again, if you have suggestions and you want to give them to us written, please do so. You can continue to fill out the form, giving us input. I will also say we are planning to present this welcome statement as is next week to be voted up or voted down. We're not going to take changes next week. We were warned by a number of congregations who went through this that wordsmithing can destroy a statement the day that it's being voted on. And so if you don't like the way it's worded, vote it down. But we're not going to take changes next week. We're just going to vote it up or vote it down. That's one thing. The second thing is we are in process. We are in process. And so this statement is not a one time and forever. We will continue to grow into it and change it as needed as we move along. We will also continue to learn how to live into it, how we can continue to learn how to welcome and make people feel like they are. We have this hashtag. I don't know if you've seen it around, but it's called Deepening Belonging. It's like everywhere. And somebody came to me and said, I have no idea what that means. When we were going through creating our new website, a group spent a long time talking about Immanuel with the people who were doing our website. And she said, the thing I find unique about your church is that, yes, you invite people in, but then you continue to invite them to go deeper, to become more part of the community, to grow in their faith and learning. She goes, that is something that's I don't know if it's unique, but it is who we are, that we continue to deepen our belonging with folks. And that is what we hope we can do as we welcome folks into our congregation as well. So I think that's all I have. Anything else this group has?
I think we should give Jeff a round of applause.
Okay, Jeff, a round of applause, yes. Good work, thank you. Thank you, thank you. And Lauren?
An announcement about Student Spot. The lower commons has tables and chairs set up in it, and we're going to be taking those down right now. So if you're interested in helping with that, just meet me downstairs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all, and I invite you to go in peace and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. And help take tables down.